Alright, what's up everyone, Matt Brozick, and next work in progress on Spider-Man is going to be masking. Who loves to mask? I actually don't mind it. A lot of people hate masking. I find it kind of relaxing because it just takes a while, so it's kind of, it doesn't bother me. So what we're going to do is we're going to mask off the blue, obviously, so we can get the red down. And I really like the blue. It's looking a little dark on camera. It's not quite this dark, but I got my exposure turned down a little bit, so hopefully it doesn't get blown out. But he's looking really good. So the first thing we do before we do a lot of masking, this has had several days to dry. We do a tape test, and that's all it is simply take a piece of tape. I'm going to use Tamiya tape. There are cheaper alternatives like blue painter's tape. I have used that in the past, but I'd rather spend a little bit money on the Tamiya tape. It's really has a really thin edge. It sticks just enough so where you put it down, unless you leave it for a very long time, it'll stay in place. Ideally, you mask something and you don't leave it masked too long because it could do funky things to your paint. But I just like it, so I basically put it down and I rip it off. And this is I just check different areas of the kit where I've painted, and this is just, if there's a problem with the paint adhesion, I want to know now before I mask all this off. And as I thought, I'm not getting any pull off. Doesn't mean I won't get any lifting, but in general, I can tell right now that we are good to go. So, yeah. Oh, I see a little touch up I gotta do there in the blue. I wonder what happened there. Okay, I gotta touch that up. Not sure what happened there. So we gotta do a little tape test, and then we're good to go. All right, so we got different widths of tape. I've got this is 6mm, 10mm, 18mm, and this is like, it's not even Tamiya. It's labeled as Tamiya tape, but it's not Tamiya. It's made by a different company. This is like, what, 20mm or something like that. I also have the pinstriping tape that I use sometimes. I'm not going to use it on this particular masking job because there's a lot of just really intricate curves and crevices you have to get tape into. And this is better if you're having like long curves or even straight edges, but this is used in the automotive industry if you're doing pinstriping. It's made by 3M. It works really well. And then also you have some of this Tamiya pinstriping tape. This is really thin. I haven't used this too much. I use this on really teeny tiny areas if I have to get some tape in there, but we're not going to use it this time. But I just want to show it to you what I use. So the first thing I'm going to mask off is the spider, because this is actually going to take probably the longest. I won't show the whole process, so I'll show you masking the spider, and then you'll get the idea. I do see a couple spots in the spider where I need to go in and do some light putty work, little surface imperfections I didn't see till after I painted the blue. So I'll get it masked, and I'll put some of that glazing putty on those areas. We'll let it dry for a while, and then we'll sand it, and we'll be ready to go. So I have a bunch of kind of scrap partial rolls that I have that need to be used up. So this is what we do. We're going to, so the tools you need, I like these tweezers, these kind of that self-closing. Those are the best. These are really strong. I always use a toothpick or a stick of some kind, a wooden skewer or a toothpick, and I bite the tip off so it's not a sharp edge. And I use that to seal the tape along the edges. And if it's, the reason I take the tip off is so if it's pointy, it's going to just tear the tape. So I take the tip off. And also, I've got an X-Acto blade with a brand new blade on it, so for cutting the tape as necessary. So going around the spider. So what I'm going to do, let's see if get this all on camera. I've wiped off my countertop earlier. I cleaned it last night after I did all this pigments because they get everywhere. So I like Windex my countertop and stuff. It looks dirty, but it actually isn't. So what I do is I take this smaller tape like this. It's kind of at a weird angle for me. Let's come down on the camera. And what I'll do is I'll just cut this into little strips. Just like this. Actually, this blade needs to be replaced. It's not sharp. I can tell right away. You know your blade is, if you have to put any pressure on the blade to cut the tape, it's not sharp. That needs to be replaced. I thought I just replaced all these. Maybe not. We get a new blade. It's about time to order blades. I'm finally almost out of razor blades. I ordered 2 boxes of these X-Life blades, God, like 5 or 6 years ago, and I finally need to order more. If I'm doing a lot of masking, when I was doing a lot of Gundam, I went through blades like crazy because there's a crap load of masking with masking tape in Gundam. Because as soon as they start to dull, you want to switch it out. Okay, so we cut a bunch of little strips. And we take a little strip like this. And this is why it's so tedious. And then you come in. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to place this right there. And I get my toothpick, which I just had somewhere. I've already lost it. Look at that. 2 seconds in, I've already lost my my toothpick. And I can see here the tape is overlapping the spider. It's fine because we're going to go in here and seal it with the stick, the toothpick. Like that. And then we're going to get another little piece. And this is why this takes so long. So I just throw on a movie or TV show I've watched a million times, usually Breaking Bad or Lost. Right now I'm watching Lost again for like the 500th time, but it's just background noise. And then again, I just take the toothpick and I push right up in there to the corner. And I'm not sure if you can see, but the tape is overlapping the spider a little bit, but that's okay because we're going to trim it off here in a second. And people ask me, why don't you use liquid mask? I'm not a fan of liquid mask. I find that because you're gonna have touch-ups no matter what you do, and a liquid mask I'm not a fan of. I've used it before. I'm just kind of one of those guys. I've always used masking tape, and I'm just real comfortable using it. I know a lot of guys that hate to use masking tape and they use liquid mask all the time. So it's whatever works for you, but tape works for me. I know the material. I know how to use it really well. So that's why. So today's goal in this work in progress is to get the red sprayed, which I'll have to make up a custom red because again, I'm having a hard time getting my Mr. Color paints. My hobby store can't get them in. I can get them on eBay, but they're way more expensive on eBay. Like the same jar of paint that would cost me $5 is $8 on eBay before shipping. So it's just a lot of little pieces of tape to outline the spider. And so like right here where it overlaps, that's why you need a new blade because there's not much stickiness. There's not a lot holding that tape in place, and it'll just, if it's not sharp, it won't cut it, it'll just pull it. You need it to cut. Just like that, and then we get our little tweezers and pull that off. So that's how you do that. Now I have like a little bigger spot right there. I'll cut a bigger strip. Right here on this leg. A lot of guys don't like cutting tape on the painted surface. And other people are like, why don't you silly putty on this? This would be a nightmare. For me, this would be way more headache. Could you imagine trying to get silly putty on this whole piece, not having it move, and then paint it? I don't know how guys do it because silly putty is great, but it doesn't. The advantage of silly putty doesn't stick very well, but the disadvantage is it doesn't stick very well. And gravity, like gravity, just moves it. So this would be a nightmare to try to silly putty it and to try to handle it and paint it. It would just, I would shoot myself. I couldn't do it. And then silly putty, I will have some touch-ups with this, with the tape, not much. Silly putty, I have to go touch up all the edges because you just can't get it thin enough, as thin as tape. So I do like silly putty for some things, but for stuff like this, I think it's a bad idea. That's just my opinion and the way I do things. So again, this is just a very slow, tedious process. And I just go through and if I got a little overlap, just cut it off. Ideally, when I pull this tape up, the edges are perfect. And sometimes they are, and sometimes I got some touch-ups to do. If I remember correctly, on the last one I did run a black line around the Spider-Man, around the Spidey, and the webbing, just because it kind of it helps clean up the edge, and it just ties in with the webbing on the suit. So another advantage to using the Tamiya tape, especially on a painted piece like this, is that I'm painting on taping a dark color, and if I have anything that I missed tape-wise, it'll pop up right away. Like I noticed I missed one little spot of blue there, so I just put this towel here. So again, I'm not going to do a ton of this on camera. I'll do a little bit more because it's the same process. And I really need to be able to move this around quite a bit. And it's hard to do that when I'm trying to film. What I'll do is I'll do a little bit more, and then when I come to an area where I have a piece of advice or a technique that's a little bit different, I'll record some more. So one major thing when you're taping is you don't want to pull the tape tight. You want to leave the tape slack. And I say that because as you're going around these curved surfaces, if you try to pull it tight, it's going to, anywhere the surface dips down, it's going to pull up. So leave the tape loose. Let the tape follow the contour or wherever it is you're masking. So when I start going around the back here where it's curved, I literally don't, it's basically hardly on there right now. And then I take my stick and I push it where I need it to go. And by leaving it loose, it conforms to that shape. There's sometimes you do want to pull the tape tight, but when you're doing stuff like this, where it's all curvy, leave it slack so you can push it into the contour. Got a little overlap there, so I just cut that little sliver off and pull up the excess. So the reason I'm leaving this little bit of putty work on the Spider-Man, or the Spider-Man on the Spidey logo until after I tape, because I have this really awesome blue paint job, and I don't want to accidentally get putty or this sanding residue on the paint, so I'd rather just mask it, and that way the blue's protected. But see how I left that, I'm not sure if that showed up because I can't get much closer with the camera. I left that slack and I just let it fall into that curve. Excuse me. So the red on this piece, the masking alone is several hours. At least the way I do it. I would spend extra time masking than extra time doing touch-ups on the edges and stuff, so it's just a slow process. So I've been masking about 15 minutes so far. We'll do a little more. So like right here, where it goes in the small of his back, this is exactly where you want to, in a spot where you want to leave the tape loose. So the tape's not even sticking there yet, so I'm going to get a little stick and seal it down. Now let me show you, since I'm in this spot, I'm going to use a little bigger piece of tape, and I'll show you another way I can do this. So I take the tape, again it's loose, it's not tight. Now since it's loose, I can go in here, see how the tape is just kind of conforming to it as I push it? It'll move pretty much to where you want. The important part is making sure that edge is sealed. And then what you can do, where your toothpick comes in handy, push it right into the crease. And then you get your blade, your brand new blade, and you'll see where it needs to cut. Oops. And I'm not putting any pressure on the blade and letting the blade do all the work. If you have to put pressure on the blade, then it's time to change the blade. Like that. So depending on what I'm doing, sometimes I'll do this. Sometimes I'll do the little pieces. When I'm doing something this complicated, this like the spider, this logo, I find the little pieces of tape. It takes a little bit longer, but I find it to be a little more accurate. You have these complex curves you're doing. So right there, I got a little spot that needs. And then right there, the small of his back, I'm going to take a little piece like this. I'm just going to kind of hold it in place there, and I'm going to seal it. Just like that. So I think you get the gist. Very slow process. You're going to go around the Spider-Man logo. And then I'm going to I'll mask off the belt and the arms, and then we'll spray the red. So we'll come back in, I don't know, a couple hours after this is masked, and we'll take a look at it. Alright, so after about an hour, I got the tape around the spider. So now we're going to tape around the arms and waist. And again, I'm just going to show a little bit of this, but it's the same technique. Just a different area of the body. So we'll do we'll do this area right here between the Spidey and the waist. Again, just take a piece of tape. Loosely put it in place, seal the edge with your stick of choice. I'm using slightly bigger pieces here because I got a bigger area to cover and the curves aren't as tight. When I get to a tighter area where the curves are a little tighter, I'll use smaller pieces. This is why it's hard to do this on camera, because I'm not at the right angle to put it down and see what I'm doing and show you guys. So again, the tape's loose and I just let it naturally kind of conform to the shape, and then I seal it. So I'm going to do this on everything else, and we'll come back in a few hours when it's done, and we'll fix little spots, little surface imperfections, and we'll spray some red. Alright, so I'm going to show you that as I'm taping this edge, I am kind of filling in a little bit here, and I'm using smaller pieces to do that instead of like trying to do big pieces, because you want this to conform to the shape of whatever it is you're masking. If you do big pieces, you're going to end up with edges that aren't sealed. So I'm just taking small pieces of this 8mm tape and just starting to fill in the area. So I'm going to continue doing that. I've got it masked all the way around to the front of the waist. I'm going to go up and then just start filling in with smaller pieces. Again, it's a safety. It's better to do that than try to do this in big pieces, because you're going to end up with edges that aren't sealed, and you'll get overspray underneath the tape, and then you'll be crying later because like, why did I have overspray on my tape? Because you didn't seal all the edges. So just want to point that out. Alrighty, next step on Spider-Man. So I got all the masking done. I went through and I saw a couple little areas on the surface that need some work. So some sanding, some spot putty filling, some more sanding, some priming, and we got everything base coated in black. So I'm just going to show you on the foot here because it's easier to work with while I'm filming. And now I'm going to go in and I'm going to add highlights to this. And this takes a while because there's a lot of little areas to highlight. So here it is. So I just got some Mr. Color White in my airbrush. And we're going to go in and we're going to highlight every single one of these little spots. Let me take that off the stick so I can work with it better. So the first thing we do is we're going to highlight all the little centers of where the pattern is. So I need a little more thinner. Just like that. So do this first. I'm not super close, I'm about 4 inches away. And that gives me a nice soft kind of transition. It doesn't take long to highlight one of these, but you got like 1,000 of these things doing the whole suit. So far, just to get to this point today, it's taken about 6 hours. So the red is that's what I'm going to work on today, just getting the red done. That doesn't include doing the webbing between the red. Now as we get to these smaller ones, they get closer. I mean a little more thinner my paint. Come on. doing? Stop, please. Somebody's yelling at the dog because she's whining. Alright, so I think you get the idea. So we're going to do it to the whole, everything. That's going to take a while. So when we get there, we'll come back. Alright, so after about 10 minutes is what the foot looks like after we've got the highlights on. So this is what the whole rest of the piece will, I missed the spot. This is what the whole rest of the piece will look like before we spray red on top. But this is all the highlighting for the red. And then once the red is on, then we'll go and add some shadows to define the muscles. But this looks really cool. If you're going to do like a white Spider-Man, this is kind of what you would look like. So that's what that looks like after that step. So when I get done with the rest of the kit in a couple hours, we'll mix up some red and put some red on top of this, and it'll look really sharp. Okay, so after several hours of spraying highlights on the web pattern, this is what we have on Spidey's suit. Looks really good. This is actually done last night. I actually go back in and brighten a couple of areas. That's one reason when I do this, I kind of let it dry overnight because it dries down. And I may go in and brighten a couple of areas, but I wanted just to dry down and see what it looks like before I put the red on. But it's looking pretty good. You can see all the highlighting and stuff in there, so it brings out that spider pattern or the web pattern really well. So I'm going to go in and brighten a couple of these areas that look a little dark to me. I actually missed a couple spots on the fingers. And then we're going to spray some red. So we'll do that next. We'll be in the spray booth spraying red on this. And we'll just layer it on until we get the color we want. Here are the heads. One of the heads. Looks pretty good. Here's the other head. Looking good. I like the smaller eyes better personally. That's my personal preference. And then you saw the feet earlier. So next step will be, after I go back and hit a couple of these other areas again, will be to put the red on. Okay, so we're in the spray booth, and I'm just going to show you what we're doing on one of the heads because I need to be able to work the figure pretty well. So we got the white on here. I've got my red mixed up in my airbrush, and now the trick is to get even coverage on all the pieces. My camera's shaking a little bit, sorry about that. So we're going to start in, we're going to put one coat on. Just like that. We're going to do this to all the other pieces. Looks like I need a little more thinner, so I'm going to put a little more thinner in this. But for now, since I've already done this piece this way, I'm going to do everything this way, and then I'll add a little more thinner, and then we'll keep layering on coats. So that's the first coat. Okay, so I add a little more thinner to my paint. We're going with a second coat now. A little wetter on this one. Slowly building it up. See all that shading is shining through the red. Red, I've said this in all my videos, red is a really crappy color at hiding. It doesn't cover very well. So we use that to our advantage. That's why I do the shading beforehand with the white. I do is so that first head's kind of like my baseline. That's kind of what I compare everything else to. So when I get done with this piece, I'll compare it to that piece and make sure that they're similar in tone and intensity and everything. Because this technique requires you to make sure you get the same amount of paint on all the pieces, which can be tricky. So I'm looking at coverage, I'm looking at evenness. When I think I'm there, then I'll kind of fan over a little bit, even things out. Then I come back to this head and I look at them, compare, and they look pretty good. If I feel like I need a little more somewhere else, I just add it. So we're going to do this. So this is 2 coats. This actually looks pretty good. I'll probably do a 3rd coat, and that'll probably be the red. And then I'll let this dry for a good 30-40 minutes, and then I'll seal it. And then I'll let that seal, the top part of the sealer dry, probably for a couple hours before I go and do the webbing. I can get the webbing done today too, I think. I just got the top coat dry enough. So here's the 2nd coat on the feet. Again, I'm a little closer. I turn my air pressure down a little bit just so I get more paint on the piece. And I'm going a little slower, overlapping about 50% each time I hit it. So this is kind of like a double coat actually, the way I did this. Go back to the head, the first head, compare tone and coverage, and we're looking pretty good. You see a little thin spot right here. Just hit that again. And that's what we look like after 2 coats. The other foot. Now the feet, I want them similar. They got to be close to the heads, but if they're off just a hair, it's not that big of a deal because you have the legs separating the feet from the rest of the body. The heads have to match the torso spot on because they go on. They're switch out, so they got to match the torso. So there are the feet after the kind of 2nd double coat. Torso. Alright, I think I can show this here. Yeah, I got enough room. Alright, 2nd coat on the torso. Again, we're going to go a little slower, a little closer. The hardest part of this is getting up underneath the neck. I have to get a different airbrush to get underneath the neck. I don't know if I can get underneath with this one. Torso is a little harder to get even coverage because you got a lot of shapes and things you got to get around. Real easy to get too much paint in one area and not enough in another. The torso's a little trickier. So the spread I'm using is a custom mix, and I think I have just enough mixed up to do this. Get underneath this hand right here. Dry a little bit, and then we'll see about putting another round of color on everything and see how we match. It's looking pretty good. So when we can even things out on an area like this is kind of big, you can just fan it on like this, and it'll help even things out a little bit. Let's see what this looks like with that head next to it. So the head needs a little bit more. But we're getting there. So I'm going to finish this up, and then we'll look at it when I'm done spraying the red. Okay, so the red's dried for about 30 minutes. We're gonna go in here and add a little shadowing to kind of define some of these shapes. I just got some clear black, acrylic black, and we're just gonna put it in real light. Just my airbrush. I don't want to put a lot in. Subtle. Clear black goes a long way. I'm using clear black because I use black to shade initially. I have some deep clear red, but it's more of a maroon color, and I don't want to change the color of the red. And then this real light. So that's really it. I put a little bit here, a little bit in the temple, a little bit on the nose, just like that. So I'm gonna do that on the rest of the parts, and then we'll seal it, and the red will be done. Okay, so now the red's done, the next step is to do the webbing, and I get asked all the time, how do you do the webbing? Well, this guy's actually pretty easy, it just takes fucking forever. So I've just got some of my craft paint here. This Anita's acrylic black craft paint, like a number, was this a number 0, number 1 brush, I don't know what this is. And since these lines are recessed, they're not raised, it's just a matter of going in and painting them in. Just like this. And then what we do, because you're not going to get it neat right away, you're going to get some paint on the red where you don't want it. So you just got to clean it up. So I just paint it in, and I just do a little bit at a time, because you don't want this paint to dry too much on top of the red, because it can stain it, since the red is a matte finish. So I just paint it in like this. Usually takes 1 coat. And then I get a Q-tip or a paper towel, very lightly damp. And you just wipe off the excess on the surface. You don't want to push on. You really don't want to push on this, because you don't want to pull the paint out of the line. So you just do this around the whole piece. And this takes forever. I think the last time I did this one, on the last one, it took me better part of a day. And I've got stuff to do today, so I'm not sure if I'll get all the webbing done today. So my goal is to get this piece finished this weekend. Once the webbing is done, then I gotta do the eyes and the big web that he's slinging. And then the Spider-Man part is done. And then it's just a matter of doing some weathering on the base. So we're moving along. So just like that. Again, this is not hard. It just takes forever. Now, if this was a raised web, meaning the webs were on the surface, that would take a lot more time, because you have to paint, I would do it in 3 steps, 3 passes. I would paint along the side of each of the raised webs, and then I'd paint the top of the raised web. And you gotta be real, when you're doing the raised webs, you gotta make sure you don't, it's much easier to get paint on the red. So yeah, this is the process. And again, not hard, just takes forever. So I'll just do a little bit more, because it's the same thing over and over again. I could use a slightly smaller brush, but then I have to make more passes. So I rather use a slightly bigger brush and wipe off the excess off the top, like that. Let's just do a little bit at a time. No big secret on how to do this. You just gotta take the time to do it. These craft paints are perfect for this, because they're for this purpose they cover in 1 coat, and they clean up really easily on this surface. But there you go. That's how you do this. Alright, so I'll spend most of the day doing this. And then we'll give everything a good coat of sealer. We'll let that dry. And then next step will be the eyes. Oh, I gotta do Peter's portrait. I forgot about that too. Which I'm not a fan of that sculpt on Peter's portrait. I think it looks a little off, but anyway, there you go. That's what we're gonna do. Okay, so I got that head done. I'm gonna show you the difference between with and without the lines. So the one on the left has them, and the one on the right doesn't. So there's quite a bit of difference, and it looks really good. So that took me about 30 minutes to do that one head, maybe 40 minutes. So we'll keep going. Okay, so while some of that webbing dries, I actually had a really bad snafu, unfortunately, on the torso. I hadn't recorded it because it was really frustrating, but I went to go seal it, and the sealer cracked some of the blue and the red paint. I think what happened is I didn't shake the can up enough, and I got mostly propellant and not the top coat. And I went back to go check out, and it had eaten through the paint and cracked a bunch of it. So I spent the past 2 evenings sanding and and getting them fixed. So I just didn't record that because it's like, I was just really upset. I just kind of had to do it and do it slow and take my time. So it happens every once in a while, but it's really annoying, especially you spend all the time masking and stuff for that to happen. So while that's drying, I'm gonna work on the Spidey eyes. So I'm gonna do kind of what I did on the first one. I'm gonna do this kind of, hold on. Get some light, camera action, okay. So as you can see here, I've come in and I just silly putty around the eyes really loose. I put down some black, and now what I have here is I have some tulle. It doesn't matter the color because I just want the pattern. And we're going to put this over the eyes and spray through it with the white. And I'm just going to hold it over here loosely like this. And the silly putty will kind of help keep it in place while I do this. And now the trick is to make sure that the pattern of the tool is the same on all the eyes. So I think last time I did one, that I had some of the pattern was off a little bit. And you don't want to stretch it too much because it'll distort the pattern, but this is going to give it that kind of diamond honeycomb look. So I'm going to actually use the silly putty to kind of hold this in place. I'm just going to push the tool into the silly putty a little bit. And now it's not flat on the surface, which is fine because we want to kind of give this a soft look. So I'm going to push that in there. And get a little white paint. I'm gonna clean out my brush real quick. There's some water in there from the last thing I did. Okay, so I got some Mr. Color White in here. And we're gonna go real easy in the center here. And we're gonna add some shading and all that stuff. Just move my lights around, bring my exposure down a little bit. Right there. If you can see what I'm doing. Still got water. Cold is why I destroy my work area. So I knock stuff down. There's still some water in my airbrush that came out. Need to get that up. Okay. We're gonna start in the center here. And just concentrate in the middle. Leaving some shading along the edges. And you get that. showing up on camera. Is it too bright? Huh? So that's, I'm not sure that's showing up in camera. So now we need to do the other side. Again, making sure that the honeycomb pattern is going the same direction. So it's kind of going just straight up. So I can actually use the white that I just sprayed kind of as a guide. And let me just make sure it's close. Doesn't be perfect. Nothing's perfect. None of my stuff is perfect. Again, just use the silly putty kind of to hold it in place. If you mess up, it's pretty easy. Just go back and spray some black on top and then redo it. The trick is you do not want to move the tool. Once you start spraying the white, don't move the tool because you'll get ghosting. You get like 2 patterns, and then you just have to go back and respray your black and then do it again. It's not the end of the world. I've had to do it before. Again, just making sure it's nice and bright in the center. And there we go. So I'm not sure, again, make sure that's showing up in camera. Yeah, right there. So now what we do, we're going to back off on the white a little bit, and we're going to soften it up just a hair. And back up and just mist a little white on just so it's not so harsh. Yep. Alright, so now we got this cool kind of honeycomb look. And then the next step after that, well, we'll put some blue pearlescent on top of that, and then we'll clear coat it. So let me do the honeycomb on this head. Actually, I'll just keep doing it. Why not? Again. I can use where I sprayed last time kind of as a guide and where to position this. And again, you don't want to pull, if you're using this tool or something like it, you don't want to pull it, you don't want to pull on it because it'll distort the shape. The last time I did this, I masked off the eyes, and I did this. This actually works better with the silly putty because the silly putty, actually, I can push the tool into the silly putty and it'll stay where it needs to go really easily. Just like that. And once you put the tool down, you start spraying, don't move it. And as you get to the edges, the pattern will get softer. Just fine, gives it a nice kind of faded look. Okay. Again, I'm kind of use the spray. I just turn the tool over so now it matches the shape of the eye again, and I'll make sure that my patterns are going the same direction. We're pretty close at least. I may do the other side. I'm looking at it, maybe it's not quite. Let's see. Let's see how we look. Alright. I think we're pretty good. So I'm going to fade those in again. To soften up the pattern a little bit. I'll put a little bit more white this in there. Alright, so there we go. Let's see how they look. Okay, that's looking pretty good. I'll let that dry for a little bit. And then we're gonna put some pearlescent blue on top. Give a little shimmer. I could probably actually mix it right into the 2K clear because I'm going to put automotive clear on these to really gloss them out. Then they'll have to dry. They'll have to dry overnight before I can paint the outline of the eyes. But I think these look pretty good. So let me clean up my airbrush and we'll come back and do the pearl. Okay, so I have some of my automotive 2K clear in here. This is a 4-to-1 mixture of clear coat, 4 parts clear coat to 1 part hardener. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little pearl in here. And I use these. These were recommended to me by Ashley Gurley years and years ago. She does a lot of anime stuff. And this is Pearl X pearls. These things are really amazing. You get these at Michael's. If you have a coupon, you get I got like a set of 16. I think there's like $30 for all of them. But there's enough pearl in here to last you like forever. So my wife even uses them like for some of her arts and crafts projects. And you don't need a lot of it. It's very fine. I'm gonna use this blue. I've done red before, but I think blue looks good because it's a nice contrast with the red on the face. And you don't need a lot, so I'm actually gonna just take a toothpick and put some in. And then mix it up. And get this kind of cool blue pearlescent look. Just gotta make sure you mix it up really well. And you want to put the lid on these pearls as soon as you're done because it's very fine powder. It gets everywhere. If it gets on your fingers, anything you touch will have pearl on it. This is what we got now. Got kind of this blue pearl. Just make sure it mixes up really, really well. Now normally I would spray this in the spray booth, but I'm not spraying a whole lot of this clear coat, so I'll do it out here on the bench. Because this stuff is automotive clear and it's gonna be pretty nasty. So I got, again, more than I need mixed up. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to mist on a light coat. Real light. This is just the first coat. Just like that. I can't even see it in the camera, but this is just a tacky coat. And we're going to let that dry for about 5 minutes. And that's just going to give us the base for the next wet clip coat to stick to. So we'll come back after about 5 or 10 minutes. Alright, so we let that, what we call flash off, for about 10 minutes. And now we're going to go in and we're going to do a wet coat. And this one, when I'm spraying these, I'm when I spray, I'm looking for, I'm using my bright lights, and I'm angling this so I can see the texture of the clear coat as it goes on. So I wanted to go on glass smooth. So there's that. And there. And then we'll do the other one. So once it looks like it's glass, then I stop spraying. And this stuff will self-level as it cures over the next 8 hours or so. Like that, okay? So now we're gonna let that dry for 5 or 10 minutes. I may add a little more pearl in there because I'm not seeing the pearl come out as much as I'd like, so I'll probably add a little more pearl into this for the next, I'll probably do 2 more coats. It's probably a little excessive, but what I like to do is I like to have enough clear on there where if I get any dirt or anything in the clear coat, I can wet sand it out and buff it if I need to. So I'm going to put some more pearl in the clear. I'm going to put probably 2 more coats on there. So now I dumped out what was in my airbrush into the cup. Yeah, that'll show up next time really well. Now you notice that when I'm spraying this, I'm not getting a lot of overspray work, so I turned my air pressure down just a little bit and I'm getting really close to the piece. So, because this 2K clear creates a lot of, it hangs in the air. It's really heavy, so it hangs in the air a lot. So we're gonna let that dry for another 5 or 10 minutes and come back and spray another coat. All right, again, we'll let those flash off for about 10 minutes, and then we're gonna put our 3rd coat on. Again, I got a little more pearl in there, so hopefully it'll show up better. Yeah, there I can see the pearl. They give you just a slight blue tint to them, but as you move them in the light, the pearl will reflect. And that may be the last coat. I'm not sure if I want these two looking too blue. I think that may be it. So they got kind of a little blue tint to them, and they're pearlescent. If you look at them straight on, they look white, and as you turn it, you get the blue kind of look. Just kind of cool, I think. Alright, yep, we're gonna call those done. Now this has got to cure overnight really before I do anything else. Yeah, so that's it for the eye, for the white of the eyes, and then we're gonna let this dry overnight, and then I'll go in and I'll hand paint the black trim with a matte black. I may have to, once I take the silly putty off, there might be a slight edge where the clear coat is. If that's the case, then I'll go in there and lightly sand that down. And I may, depending on how this looks, I may have to actually mask off the clear and then spray a flat coat on everything. So I can do that after And I'll use silly putty. I won't use masking tape because last time when I did the light, I left a residue for some reason. I don't know why I did that. I can just use silly putty on top of the clear coat, and it shouldn't leave a residue, and I can do a quick flat coat on the head and everything. So that's it for the whites of the eyes. Let's see, I've showed you doing the webs. Let's see, the next thing I think is going to be, I don't know. I'll figure it out. So hopefully in this work in progress video, Spider-Man himself will be done. Except for Peter's portrait. I'll do that in a separate video. But stay tuned for what I do next. I don't know what it is. Okay, so finishing up on the Spidey eyes. What I've done is I masked off the eyes here on this guy. And I'm going to do this real quick because I don't want to leave this tape on there too long because I don't want to get that residue. So I masked it off. Now I'm going to do is I'm going to take an ultrafine sanding sponge and I'm going to sand this part because I want to try to reduce that edge where the clear coat is, and also this will give the paint something better to stick to. Paint will not want to stick to that clear coat. So we're going to give it a light sanding like this. And then we got my toothpick. And just make sure the edges are sealed really good. And then we'll spray some black on there. And we'll take the tape off except for the middle. And then we'll seal it one more time and then the eyes will be done. So let me get some, I'll spray that, seal it, and we'll take a look at it when it's done. And there we go. So that's what it looks like. I got a little bit of touch up here on this ledge where my tape kind of got up on the side of the eye, but this is what we look like after we've been sealed and everything, and it looks really sharp. So I'll do this to the other one, and then the only thing left on Spider-Man himself is the web, which I've already got a base coat of white on most of the parts, and then I'm going to do a wash on those to kind of give it some, just so it's not so stark white, but this one looks really good. So I'm going to do this to the other head, and then the heads will be done, and they look really sharp. So hopefully my client likes this, because I think they look phenomenal. So I think the next part of this will probably just be the last work in progress because I'm just going to keep on going. The next part will be probably just weathering the base and finishing up this piece. So when I get to that point, I'll show you that. Okay, so we're going to move on to Peter's portrait. I got the web done. I didn't film any of it, but simply what I did is I base coated it in white, and then I went over it with some bone white, and then I dry brushed white on top of that, so it's got some slight shading, but the web is done. So the only part left on Spider-Man is Peter's portrait. So this was primed initially in Stano Res Light Flesh. I let that dry for a few minutes, and then I gave it a base coat of GarageKits.us Light African Flesh, and then I sealed it. I kind of find this like a really good base coat for Caucasian skin. It's a little on the tan side. We're gonna go and do our flecking that I've kind of been doing in the past few builds, and then we'll build up from there. So let me get a little stiff brush. Need to go. About time to go buy some more cheap brushes. Mine are getting all ratty. So it's like a little crappy brush. First color I got going on is some red. And then if you get one too, it's a little too big, like this guy right here, I'll just dab it off. It's not, I hit the hair, so it's not a big deal. Take most of it off the first time. This is going to give the illusion of pores and freckles and stuff by the time we're done. Okay, then we'll do some blue. I'm not even gonna worry about sealing it. We got a little kind of a wonky one here on the side of the nose. Take that off. Like that. And I'll do some purple. Some purple. Somewhere I've got some purple. There it is. Kind of funny because the red and blue make purple, and then we go back over it with some just straight purple. Oops, that's a big one right there on the ear. Yeah, and then we'll do some green. So again, I stole this technique from Raphael in his videos, and it's made quite a difference as far as like my portraits go. They do have a lot more life to them. In figure painting, the hardest thing are portraits. There are some guys that are just really, I look at some painters' works like it's crazy how good they are. How realistic they get everything to look. Okay, I'm gonna do a little yellow. Whoops, that's not good. Dab that off a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna go with some browns. Bright brown, or dark brown I should say. I'm gonna wash my brush out for this one a little bit. Raphael uses India inks for most of his painting, which is, I've looked at that, but I got so much money invested in other things. But I like the idea of inks because they're really, they are water based and easily removable if you kind of screw something up. Looking good, and then we'll do a light brown, and then finally white, and then we'll go in and we'll mist on our base color. Again, real light. I'm going to thin it down a little bit. Come on. About time to go to the craft store. Get some more craft paints. I don't need a lot. Just need like a little bit. That's actually pretty thick. Alright. He's got a funky look going on, not sure if it's showing up in camera. And then we're going to go with some white. A little big. Should have done a few more little flecks over here. You can do this in airbrush too. I kind of like this method better because it's just you have to clean the airbrush up between each color. And this seems to give you a little more randomness, which is kind of the whole point of this technique. Okay, so there we go. Got this kind of freckled look. Now I'm going to go seal this real quick. And then I'm going to put on another layer of my base coat, real light, thin down. So I'm going to go seal it and come back. I'm not sure if it was recording a second ago, but I'm just thin down some light African flesh in my airbrush, and I'm putting on real thin. I don't think I was recording a second ago. So I just got to thin down, just really lightly missing this on. I don't want to bury what I've done, I just want to kind of, I don't want to hide what I've done, I just want to kind of start burying it underneath the surface of the skin. Going back way off, get this really thin down. So now this is where we are. I'm going to seal this. I'm going to bring my exposure down just a little bit. I'm going to seal this, and I'll do the first bit of shading, and then we'll keep layering on the base skin tone to start to get some depth to this. Alright, so we're going to start going to do some shading with my pastels, and then we'll build up the skin tone. So right now I've got some, this is burnt sienna. So I got my little pastel brush, and we're going to go in here and hit all the shadows. And it's going to look really punchy at first. So we're going to blend it in with some more layers of base coat. So I dab it on and I kind of fan it out. Hairline first. So we're going to start adding some shape to everything. This sculpt has really got a lot of soft features. It's a very young looking sculpt. which is pretty appropriate. There's not a lot of hard detail sculpted into this face. Which is amazing. You can really, depending on how you do your shading and stuff, you can really accentuate some of the features and make them harder. I like these angled brushes because I can really kind of control how I fade everything pretty effectively. See, I'll use the tip, the pointy part of the brush. I'll have that kind of go towards an area that I want the shadow to fade. So here I dabbed here, but these long bristles are hitting the top of the forehead, so it kind of fades that in naturally. So here, these are going to be really punchy shadows. It's fine, because we're going to soften it up with we'll do these and we'll go seal it. And I like to look at it from straight on, kind of make sure I'm symmetrical. Since this is a symmetrical sculpt, make sure we're pretty even on both sides. Hit the jawline pretty hard. I always forget it behind the ears, so. Okay, it's looking pretty good. And his cheeks are real soft, they're not super defined. I find if I dab, I get a better look and blend. So that's why I'm constantly bouncing my brush up and down on the surface. Okay, so it's looking pretty punchy right now. That's all right. I'm gonna go seal this, and then we'll mist on our base coat again real light, and then we'll add some highlights and go from there. So I'm gonna go seal this and I'll come back. Alright, so it's been sealed, and why do I seal it before I spray the next layer of paint on? Because I don't want the paint to activate the pastels. So I seal it to kind of lock them into place. Alright, here's our base coat again back way off. Okay, so now I'm going to seal this again. I'm going to go with some pastels and do highlights, and then we'll seal it again and keep going. Lots of sealing. Okay, so it's been sealed with a hairdryer, and I'm going to go with some of this. This is burnt sienna tint. It's a really kind of pale pink. And we're going to take this and hit this on all the high spots. Step will take a little bit longer because we're doing a little more pinpointing of tones. Cheekbones, top of the nose, down the side of the nose here. Chin. Not too worried about the lips right now. Those will get done with either oils or watercolors. Maybe a little harsh there. So one reason you seal this, I don't like what's going on there, so I'm just gonna take a little very damp, lightly damped Q-tip and wipe those off. Now since I do have this sealed in flat, you're not gonna get it all up, I can get most of it off. The ears. Use it kind of do a dry brush. Just hit the tops. Got a little piece of dirt there. Try and get it out. There it goes. Saw a little piece of dirt that kind of got stuck under one of the layers of sealer. So just trying to get it out. Alright, so this is looking pretty good. It's really punchy. That's alright. We're going to blend it in again. Actually see a little thing right there. Okay, so this is looking pretty good. Alright. That's looking really punchy. We can still see all our freckling and everything going on underneath the pastels. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to seal this again. And we're going to again take our thinned out base color and mist that on again. And then we'll mist on a couple other tones to shift the color a little bit. But this is where we are now. Oh, and by the way, what I've been using to seal it, just real quick, instead of going to my air booth and sealing it, I'm using a Krylon matte, or not Krylon, Alclad matte, and I like this because this dries really, really flat and really fast, and it's perfect for sealing in between pastels because the Krylon, even though it says flat, it's more like a semi-flat, so it's not really, really flat, so it doesn't take pastel as easily as this does. So I've been kind of switched a little bit to using this to seal at my bench. Here, I'll show you real quick. I just take this. I just put on a coat. Union coat. Like this, and then in about 2 minutes it'll be dry and I can start doing pastel work again. But I'm gonna let this dry and I'm gonna put on another coat of our base color, and then from there I'm gonna add a couple other tones, semi-transparent tones of skin color to adjust the color, because right now it's kind of orange. That's one thing about using burnt sienna, is it's really a red color. So we're gonna just adjust that. It's great for underneath the skin for making shadows and stuff, but you can, and even the camera's really orange looking. So I'm gonna let this dry for a little bit, and then we're gonna mist on another base coat, another coat of base coat. Okay, I didn't record it, but I went ahead and misted on another couple layers of my base skin tone, and we're looking. That's pretty punchy in camera, but in person it looks pretty natural so far. So it's still a little punchy. But I want to also adjust the tone of this a little bit. I'm going to brighten it up a hair. So I'm going to come in with a little virgin flesh. And I'm going to shift this just a hair. I'm going to back this way, way off. So that actually added a little more flecking to it, which is kind of nice. I blended it all in pretty good. Got one little spot here. Got one big spot of it, so we're gonna take that off. So now we're looking pretty good. I'm digging that. Alrighty, actually that's looking pretty good. Got a little piece of dirt in there, it's bugging me. Just gonna get it out. There we go. So I think from here, I'm actually pretty happy with this right now. Trying to decide what I want to do. I'm going to seal it again. Get this on a little bit wetter. Take a little smooth finish on it. Alright. Let this dry, then I'm going to look at it. But it's getting pretty close to where I want. May put a little bit of bronzer on there. Just gonna let this dry naturally and then hit it again with maybe, I don't know, it's pretty close. It's looking pretty good. Some of this is dry for a little while. I'll come back. Okay, so from here what I did is I went in and did one more round of that highlight pastel on the highlights. I just sealed it, and now we're looking good again. That's how I do skin tone. There's a lot of back and forth. In person, this looks really good. It's looking a little punchy on camera, but I think in person it looks really good. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go in, I just sealed it, I'm going to go in with some really watered down red and hit the cheeks a little bit to give it a little bit of kind of tone to the cheeks. So I got some really, really watery red. It's mostly water. And we're gonna get some Q-tips here. Actually need more water than that. Oh, that's not water. That's paint thinner. Alright, so I just mixed up paint thinner in my red. Don't want to do that. So let me mix up some more over here. And this has been sealed, so this will oops. I actually need a bigger brush, that's too small. Here, you get some weird things going on. Here, I'll get this brush. Pinken up the cheeks a little bit. Put some really watery red on there. And take a Q-tip and dab it. Try to blend it. Okay, it's not blending very good, so I'm going to kind of take it off a little bit. That's why you seal stuff really good. kind of trial and error for me when I do this technique, but when I get there, it looks really good. There we go. It's pretty subtle, but it's there. The trick is to make sure it blends into the rest of the skin. So that looks pretty good. Let's do the other side. So right there, I gotta have a really defined line. Just kind of dampen my Q-tip and wipe on it a little bit to blend it in. Pretty good. So now the cheeks got a little bit of pink to them. Make sure it shows up in camera. It's a little punchy in camera, but. And I'm going to do a little purple under the eyes. It's pretty good. Okay. That's looking pretty sharp, I think. Pretty happy with that. So from here, I gotta look this up in my light. I may do a little misting of. That's what I did last time. It's virgin flesh, bright flesh. I think I missed on a very, very, very thin coat of bright flesh. I'm going to thin it pretty good. color a little bit. I'm going to put a little bit of gold tone around here next. There's a little bit of warmth. It's looking a little dead. So gold toners are transparent. Again, I'm back way off and just really lightly mist this on. You can still see the wash I did on the cheek and the eyes. I think that's it right there. I think that's looking pretty good. So I'm going to seal this. I'm going to base coat the eyes and the hair, and then the skin tone will really tell me where it is. If I need to adjust it from there, I can with pastels, but I think we're there. It looks pretty good. Doing those little washes in the cheeks and the eyes really adds a lot of life to the piece. So seal this real quick. See if I got enough in here. It should. And the sealer kind of brings it all together anyway. Alright. We'll let this dry, and then we'll base coat the hair and the eyes. Got a little hair right there. Not sure where those random hairs come from, but probably from the Q-tip that I was using earlier. Should get them. We're looking good. Alrighty, so I can go ahead and do the base coat the eyes. For that, I like to use Garage Kit's Bone White. Usually takes a couple of coats because it's not super opaque, but it's a nice kind of off-white for eyes. I may have to do this off camera so I can get my optivisor on and see what I'm doing. His eyes are kind of squinty. This brush has about had it. Oops. Yeah. Let me Q-tip real quick. Yeah. Toothpick. Oh, that dries too much. So when I get the skin tone close to where I think it needs to be, that's when I put the eyes and the hair in. So that makes a big difference to what the skin looks like. And I'm still not the best at skin tones by any means. It's still a struggle for me to get them to where I think they look good. I'm getting better, but they are tough. Alright, the whites are about in. So I think today, if I get this portrait done, today's Sunday. I haven't uploaded my other work in progress video yet. I didn't sleep very well last night. I got like 2 hours of sleep. So maybe today I get this part done, then all I gotta do is worry about the base tomorrow and kind of finish up tomorrow. That's kind of what I'm thinking. So I can maybe take a nap or something. Okay, so the whites are in. That looks good. Even that right there helps the skin tones come together. Now I'm going to base coat the hair. And he's kind of got a brownish red hair. Kind of typical hair that I tend to paint on things. So I'm going to start off with a coat of burnt umber. I think that's my go-to base coat. Yeah, burnt umber. Mix a little water with it. It usually takes 2 coats of this. I should have gone along the hairline first. I don't know what I was thinking. Usually that's what I do. He's got this little curly Q too. That doesn't get a paint. Okay, so I think you get the idea there. So I'm gonna get this base coated and get this sealed, and then we'll come back and look at it. Okay, well, I went ahead and finished up the portrait. Just got done glossing the eyes, but it looks really, really good. So I went in and did some dry brushing on the hair. We got this kind of reddish brown hair going on. Looks really good. Skin tone looks really, really nice. I'm happy with that. Got a little piece of dirt here in the top coat. I think this looks really nice. A little rouge in the cheeks. Nice little waterline going on. So the portrait is done. So Spider-Man himself is done. The last bit to do is the weathering on the base, and this piece is finished up, but I'm really, really happy with this. So don't know if I'll record the weathering of the base. It's very similar to what I did before, but I'm going to call it a night as far as working on this goes, and then we'll finish up tomorrow. But it's looking really good.